Hello Internet, AdoptedMike here, and in this video I'm going to be doing a budget PC build. The case I'm going to be working with this time is the Rosewill Ranger M. It's a micro ATX chassis, as you can see there. The motherboard is going to be the ASRock FM2A55M-HD Plus, which is a socket FM2 AMD processor. And the processor we're using is the A4 4000 APU, so that's the lower end dual core APU that is for that chipset there. The RAM I'm using is just 4 gigabytes, so there's two 2 gigabyte sticks there by Team, so it's their Elite series. The power supply, you can tell, is the Corsair CX430. That's one of my favorites, especially for the price. It's kind of overkill for this particular budget, but I was picked up for 20 bucks after mail-in rebates, so it just made sense, obviously, there. We're going to be running Windows 7 Home Premium 64-bit there, and we're reusing the customer's Samsung solid-state drive. That's an 830 series, so it's a little bit older, 128 gigabytes. It's still SATA 6 gigabit a second, so it'll still probably, I expect it to still fly. It's not that old, it's still got some life left in it. And then this case comes pre-installed with a blue LED fan that's right in there behind the Windows disk. So I'm actually going to be replacing it with that black fan there, because the customer doesn't really care to have blue LEDs or any kind of flash going on there. They were just basically looking for a cheap build for home use for their kids. And then up top I've got an ASUS DVD reader and writer combo drive. So anyway, we're going to be focusing on this particular case and how the build goes with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started by obviously showing off the case. So what we have here is essentially just a no frills case. There's a little bit of mesh here in the front to sort of act as, a dust filter, if you will, but it could easily be vacuumed off. We can spin this around there. We can take a look at the side. Not really anything going on there, just a little bit of ventilation. And we've got a top mounted power supply here, as well as an 80mm fan with option to be a 92mm fan. We've got 4 slots for micro ATX, and then we have the back side there. So now let's take it all apart and we'll take a look at the guts of the system, or the case rather. So with the side panels off, we can definitely tell here that they're not super rigid, but I didn't really expect much out of this. So but anyway, both side panels do come off, so that's a thing. Anyway, we've got the front in here, non-painted interior. We've got all of our cables neatly zip tied there. Got a bag of screws. There's the fan that needs to be replaced with the black fan. We'll get rid of that LED fan. Then flip it around to the back side here. We've got an access hole to screw the hard drives down, and up here as well too to screw any kind of optical drive we're using, or bay device for that matter. There's really no room back here for any kind of cable management. It's pretty tight. However, you might be able to sneak something, but really your entry points really are around this opening here, and then there's kind of one here, but it's a little sharp, so they might end up cutting a wire, so may not be the best case to use for any kind of rear cable management. But that's that's what we've got here in this kind of a budget case. That's about all we can really get. So anyway, we'll pop off the front face here and we'll take a look behind it. So take there, we can get another look at the sort of, just the honeycomb metal material there acting as a somewhat of a dust filter. Up top here there's actually some foam padding that would act as a better dust filter up top here. Not sure why there wasn't any installed down here, but it is what it is. Most big particles anyway will be caught by that, a lot of hair and stuff, but the fine dust will make it through there. And then here's the front. nothing major there. So we'll start by removing and replacing that fan. So I got a little ahead of myself anyway. I did replace the fan down there, which is pretty simple, just 4 screws and it was done. And I went ahead and installed the DVD rewriter drive here and put the front panel back on, and installed the rear I/O as well too, or the rear I/O shield rather, there. So now it's time, you can start to see what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and get the motherboard installed. So now we can see everything is coming together quite nicely, and I'm at a point that I want to show something. This is a smaller micro ATX board, and what I mean by that, it doesn't have the width of a standard micro ATX board. So you can tell there's a couple of more mounting holes there, or standoff holes, so we could get a bigger motherboard in there as far as going that way. Obviously we're maxed out up and down, but then you get into those boards that have 4 RAM slots, and that's how that space is a little bit better distributed. So anyway, that will fit in here. It does get a little tight around the top here with the 5 1/4 bay, and then obviously it puts everything a little closer to any kind of hard drive and stuff that you have sticking out, and it still will work, being that the processor mount actually, or the location, doesn't change enough that you would have to worry about it actually getting in the way of a hard drive that sticks out should you be installing one. Another thing I wanted to point out as well too is a tower style. You could easily do an 80mm fan on a tower style heatsink, so you keep that in mind. A 120mm fan tower heatsink will not fit. The side door won't close. So I would probably recommend an 80, maybe a 92, but an 80 would probably be a safe bet, and still being able to have enough airflow and room around it. I would not do a liquid cooling unit. The smallest one that I've seen up to date is like 120mm, and that radiator is not going to fit with the clearance between that fan and the bottom of the 3.5-inch drive bay. And this cage is not removable, riveted in. Everything is riveted in this case, so that's one thing to think about. So you're pretty much stuck with air cooling, but you could do a tower and you could blow towards this back fan and get the hot air out just fine. That was probably the best cooling you're going to get out of this case, and if you're looking for more, you definitely probably want to check out a different case anyway, as this is kind of it's a little bit of a budget case. So anyway, that being said, we're going to go ahead and continue on with the rest of the build. Alright, so as you can see now, I've got the CX430 installed, and this is going to be where we start to see, you know, the issues of this particular case. It's going to be basically with the fact that this is a non-modular power supply, and you know, it just is what it is. I've never had a problem with the CX430. They're really affordable, but in a case like this, holy cow, we're gonna have to hide all these cables, and there's nowhere to hide them. So this is where it starts to get interesting. You know, for example, there's just a lot of stuff we just aren't gonna need, and it's gonna have to go somewhere. So anyway, that's the first problem, I guess, with this case, is when you're using a non-modular. Heck, even a modular power supply though is still going to have some leftover cable. For example, unless you custom do your own, which if you're custom doing your own, you're probably not looking at a $20 or less case. Even if this, I mean, it's way longer than we need. But anyway, no more griping about that. I just wanted to point it out, and I'm just going to do the best that I can with what I've got and see what happens. Alright, so here's the cable management that I was able to come up with. Not perfect, but it's not horrible either. So basically I just tucked everything up underneath the optical drive there. I zip tied it where I could and made it all kind of fit, and we got everything else kind of pulled back and stowed away up underneath there as best as I could. So that'll show you guys what's kind of capable. I mean, there is a little bit more that could have been done, but in the interest of time and obviously money, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. The only thing I could have changed, I suppose, was this could have been routed a little differently, the 4-pin CPU connector. But anyway, that's what I came up with. And in the meantime, the customer has decided that he wanted to change out the SSD for a for more capacity. So we decided to go with a 1 terabyte SSHD. So we'll get a little bit of the benefit of an SSD with all of the benefit of a hard drive. So we're gonna, as far as capacity goes anyway. Plus this board is only SATA 2 anyway, so it made perfect sense to not have a blazing fast SSD in it when we're gonna be hindered in performance by the SATA bus. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put that hard drive in, and that's about gonna wrap it up. So anyway, as you can see, I've got the hard drive installed right there, and it's screwed in and good to go, which brings me back to a point that I had earlier. Had this been the wider micro ATX motherboard, it would have been a little more difficult to install the hard drive after the fact. And specifically, if it was higher profile RAM, it would have been more difficult to get it in there. But at any rate, with the smaller motherboard and the lower profile RAM, I had absolutely no problem installing, and possibly, I mean, I could remove it just as easily as well too. So anyway, this build is all in the case, and now I'm going to throw the side panels back on, and then I will get to my conclusion. So how do I feel about the Rosewill Ranger M? Okay, to answer that question, I got to bring back the budget again. Because this is a budget-oriented case, this is a budget-oriented build, I didn't need it to do a lot of things as far as the case. I didn't need USB 3.0, hence there's only USB 2.0. I didn't need some of the frills and the bunch of hard drive bays and different things like that, or massive air flow through the case as well either. So you got to take into consideration, what I was building here is a relatively cheap computer for someone to use on the internet, do some word processing. I wouldn't recommend this for gaming at all. It probably could do okay with like 2D games, but I sure as heck would not recommend this for 3D games with that dual core APU. But so anyway, the case is actually great for what I'm doing with it. Now, if I were to, say for example, wanted to add a video card into here, and then we would start having some issues as far as possibly issues with airflow, I guess, possibly, depending on what video card I used. If I ended up needing like a quad-core CPU or an 8-core CPU build, putting it into this thing, then we're going to have some airflow problems. But heck, for what this build is and what this machine is going to do, this actually is a pretty good case, considering trying to cram everything in there at that $25 mark. So really, it's going to come down to what you guys, or whoever is inquiring about this case, what you want to build, what you're going after. I would never put a high-powered gaming build in this particular case, no way. But heck, this case works out perfect for exactly what the customer is going to be using it for. Some internet, some web browsing, some word processing, different things like that, installing a couple of 2D games. This thing will be awesome. So anyway, if you like the video, go ahead and give me the thumbs up, and in the comments section below, let me know what you guys think about this case and if you've ever used it or plan to use it in the future. And as always, thank you for watching.